Welcome back to Creative Excuses, where we make excuses to be creative out of the video games that we play. If you've wondered where I've been, check the description where I'll have a blog post explaining what I have been up to for the past 4 months. But what's the excuse today? We are making another build video. I promised almost 6 months ago that I would have a vampire build out soon, and soon has finally arrived. So meet my stage 4 vampire Nightblade, the Edgelord. This is a theme build like all of my builds, but it is not a simple bar build. This one is a little bit sweaty with the bar swapping, but there are definitely ways to simplify the build if you are willing to spend some gold on spell power or spell crit potions. As I said, this is a theme build, and the theme is an Edgelord vampire. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean, as we live life on the edge, as we get lower and lower health, we are going to deal more damage, and we are going to become tankier. Being lower health, living on the edge, makes us stronger. That's the Edgelord, so let's jump into it. For our race, any Magicka-based race should work, might work. However, a Breton will be best in slot because Magicka Sustain will be a real issue on another race, because we are going to be a stage 4 vampire. Swapping out our food could mitigate this if you are a high elf or a dark elf. However, again, a Breton is going to be best in slot with their recovery bonus and their cost reduction. We are putting 64 points into max Magicka, and we do have a few options for our food. First is going to be Corrupted Bloody Mara, which will maintain our stage 4 vampirism for us, which is super nice. It's also going to give us huge max Magicka and max health stats. However, if you do want more sustain or you're not on a Breton, I'd recommend Witch Mother's Potent Brew, or better yet, Clockwork Citrus Fillet, because these are going to give a bit of max health, a bit of max Magicka, and they're going to give you a bunch of magical recovery, which you are going to need. Our potion is just going to be a basic trash Magicka potion, but a spell crit or spell power potion will open up more options to simplify your build. The medicinal use passive in the alchemy skill line especially, which I'm too lazy to get myself, is going to help out our sustain a lot and make those more expensive potions more cost effective. For our Mundus Stone, we are running the Thief Mundus for the extra critical healing on Sap Essence, but the Lever Mundus also works really well. As we are a stage 4 vampire, for once, the Ring of the Pale Order actually makes thematic sense and isn't just a crutch to make my janky builds work. Our front bar 5-piece set is specifically to match the theme of the build, the Edgelord, while it gives us an incredible amount of damage resistance. We're going with Mark of the Pariah, so that as our health drops, our resistances go up. When we combine this with the Undeath passive, from being at least a stage 3 vampire, our 30k health is going to go a very, very long way. It's going to feel like when your phone lasts an hour while on 1% battery. The lower our health, the more our health bar is going to get stretched out by our damage resistance. It is fantastic. It's super fun. We're running this as 3 pieces on the body and on our weapons, which is a sword and shield. Ideally, this would be on the chest, legs, and shoulders for maximum resistances, but any combination of chest, legs, shoulders, and feet is totally fine. You'll only lose a little bit of resistances by doing that. Our second 5-piece set is on the body and the jewelry, and that is going to be War Maiden. Basically, all of our damaging abilities as a vampire Nightblade are magic damage, and this set adds a ton of spell damage for our magic damage abilities. It's a great option. However, originally I wanted to use the True Sworn Fury set to further lean into that Edgelord theme, really relying on our resistances at around 50% health to keep us healthy and allow us to pump out some good damage. But I'm too smooth brain to get this to work. If you can get it to work though, True Sworn Fury could be a great option. For War Maiden though, we are running 3 pieces on the body, the chest, waist, and gloves, and 2 pieces of jewelry on the ring and the necklace. Ideally, you're going to want to put War Maiden on the legs, feet, or shoulders instead of the chest so that you can get maximum resistances. Our last item slot is a 1-piece monster helm, and I am using a heavy piece of Narineth for just a bit more spell damage, but Slime Craw should work just as well for the crit bonus too. We are using a heavy helm for more resistances, more health, and a bit of sustain. And most importantly, for the Shadow Barrier passive, so that if we keep our Twisting Path up 100% of the time, we will keep our armor buff up 100% of the time, further increasing our resistances. We are going to be very, very tanky on this build. Finally, on our back bar, we are running the Perfected Void Bash set from Vet Vadashran Hollows. The normal set would also work just as well, but if you don't have this set, just use another Pariah weapon and shield, and we will drop Power Slam from the back bar and replace it with Heroic Slash for extra ultimate generation, and that should be fine as well. All of our armor is enchanted with a mixture of health and magicka enchants, infused on the big pieces for max stats, but divines and everything else is great too. Pick your enchants on the armor based on how comfortable you feel with lower and higher health values. Alright, that brings us to our skills. On our front bar, we are running Blood for Blood for our single target spammable. We have Sap Essence for our major sorcery buff, Area of Effect spammable, and a heal. Then we have a big flex spot here, Inner Light for our crit buff and some extra max magicka, and then Twisting Path for a big Area of Effect damage over time skill, some extra health from passives, and for our major resolve buff. And finally we have Soul Harvest on the front bar for our ultimate. On the back bar we have Pierce Armor for a massive amount of penetration. Then we've got Debilitate for a big single target dot and for some magicka sustain. Then we have Swallow Soul for a heal over time and ranged spammable when we need it. Power Slam for our Void Bash set to group up enemies really well and to apply major maim. And then another flex spot that I like to leave Mystic Orb in place for, just for some extra Area of Effect damage. Our back bar ultimate is going to be Swarming Scion to complete the vampire feel and to work as a big burst heal and a huge damage steroid if we end up building up enough ultimate for it, which happens quite often because we're going to get 10 extra ultimate every time we kill something on the front bar. For our flex spot on the front bar, we have several options. What you see here is Shadow Image from the Shadow skill line, which is a ranged pet that you can teleport to if you activate it again. You'll see me use this to skip the DPS checks in the final fight of Vet Vadashran Hollows, so it is a fantastic option. But it is pretty situational. It can be used in place of Mystic Orb on the back bar as well, in single target fights, as it'll help you with your sustain because it's got a 20-second timer on it instead of a 10-second timer, and only costs a few hundred magicka more. It also applies minor maim and doesn't have to be cast as often, which is super nice and just simplifies your rotation. Our next option is going to be Merciless Resolve from the Assassination skill line. This is a great skill to buff our bar passively. What we're going to do with it is just cast it once, build up 5 light attacks or heavy attacks to get that free 300 spell damage, and just let it sit there. It also gives us access to more of the assassination passives, like this one, where we're going to get an extra 2% crit chance from having it on our bar. However, it also doubles as a nice burst heal. As you can see, it hits for 18,738 magic damage and heals for 50% of the damage dealt if you're within melee range. If you get a crit on this, or you use it underneath a Soul Harvest, which is going to increase their damage taken by 20%, it really does heal a lot. This is going to take you from half health to full health pretty easily. Merciless Resolve is usually the skill that I leave on the front bar. Another good option is going to be Swallow Soul from the Siphoning skill line, which we have on the back bar already. However, this is just putting it here just makes it easier to keep it up, and you can use it as a spammable, a ranged spammable when you need it. It is also cheaper than casting Sap Essence in a single target fight as a heal, so there's that as well. The next ability you can slot here in the flex spot is Assassin's Blade or Impale. The Impale morph, if you want to save the skill point, is just a ranged version of this and might deal like a tiny bit more damage. So if you want to save the skill point, Assassin's Blade is totally fine. But this is going to be our class Execute, and this is just going to give us, again, 2% more crit chance, and is going to let us really hit the bosses hard in Execute range, under 25% health. It is nice However, I would not recommend using the execute in this slot. Instead, if you're running spell power or spell crit potions, I would slot Assassin's Blade here in place of Inner Light. You'll lose a bit of max magicka, but you'll gain the huge damage boost in the execute phase, and you'll get a little bit more crit chance from doing that as well. However, I don't have medicinal use, and I don't spend any money on potions. So, Inner Light it is for me. The last option for our flex spot here is going to be Sated Fury or Simmering Frenzy. If you really want to lean into the health management aspect of this build, Sated Fury and Simmering Frenzy are both great options. They're a big damage buff, 630 weapon and spell damage or 650 weapon and spell damage. It's a lot. About double Merciless Resolve, which is quite strong. Sated Fury can also be used as a burst heal, and Simmering Frenzy can just buff your damage to absurd numbers. I have a hard time managing these abilities, so I do not use them. Again, for general purposes, Merciless Resolve is fantastic, and the only time I slot Shadow Image is for the final fight of Vatashran Hollows. One last note on skills, again, if you want to simplify things a bit, if you are running Spell Power or Spell Crit potions, instead of slotting Assassin's Blade, you can also just slot Pierce Armor here. What this lets you do is have a pretty decent and tanky 1-bar setup. You no longer need the back bar as much, though again, having healing on the back bar is not bad, and you can slot Swallow Soul here if you really want. This is a pretty decent 1-bar setup for a good bit of content, but again, only do this if you are running Spell Power or Spell Crit potions. Alright, for passives, we are going to want all of our class passives from Assassination, Shadow, and Siphoning. We're going to want almost all of our one-handed shield passives. The first 3 are the most important. We'll get to this in a second, but if you are using dual wield, you're going to want all of your dual wield passives as well. The guild skills, for the Mage's Guild, you want Magicka Controller to get a little bit extra max Magicka for using Inner Light. I don't have this, obviously. The build is functional without it. And the same with Undaunted. You're going to want Undaunted Metal if you can get it. But again, I don't have it. And the build is functional. You'll also want all of your racial passives. And finally, you'll want all of your vampire passives, except for Dark Stalker here, unless you really want to play sneaky. Finally, you'll want all of your light armor passives and all of your heavy armor passives. Alright, one last note. I am using the sword and board on the front bar because I really like the way it looks. And it's fun, it's unique, it's different. However, you can squeeze a bit more damage out of this build if you go dual wield on the front bar, with a sword and board on the back bar. In that case, I recommend a sword and dagger on the front bar with any combination of charged, sharpened, defending, and precise traits. Personally, I would choose charged or sharpened and defending so that I only lose like 50 resistances, but I gain a lot of offensive stats. Just to show you what those stats look like really quick, I do have another Dagger of Pariah, although I have sharpened and defending here. Your stats go up just a tiny bit. You go up to almost 50% crit chance depending on what ability is on your front bar. It's nice. It is more damage, but you are going to lose out on your block mitigation, which for me, I like it. And you lose out on the fashion because the shield just looks sick. All right, everyone, that is the Edgelord Vampire. We are living life on the edge, although mine is not quite as edgy as it could be without that True Sworn Fury set. I'm going to leave you guys with some footage of the final boss fight in Veteran Vatashran Hollows, and I will catch you all in the next excuse.
You made it all the way to the end! Only one final challenge left. Me? Oh, what? Foul magic! I feel it tearing me apart!
Pray once more. I can feel such power within these walls. A pity for your ghost friend. I consumed his spirit to enter this realm. And now, I shall take yours. I summon the infinite! The void comes for you! Send me more power!
Mother. We did not summon such a creature for this challenge. Vatashran's rights now end. You did more than we expected. Well done. A hard one, although this... We